For today's edition of Tech Talks with NASSCOM Insights, we are going to focus on hybrid cloud and its growing relevance. As they say, cloud is the future of business and the future of cloud is hybrid. Hello everyone, I am Diksha Nerurkar, NASSCOM Research Lead, and to give his perspectives on the hybrid cloud business, I am happy to welcome Mr. Gopal Pingali. He is the Managing Director and Global Leader Hybrid Cloud at Accenture. Welcome to the show, Gopal. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thanks, Diksha. It's a real pleasure talking to you and to the broader audience that you're connecting me with around this very interesting topic. Just to introduce myself, like you said, I'm Gopal Pingali. I'm the global lead for hybrid cloud solutions at Accenture, and I'm located in Bangalore and within the advanced technology centers in India for Accenture. I have a lot of experience in this space. I've been in the cloud space for over a decade, and especially in the hybrid cloud space. And I've been leading hybrid cloud efforts for hundreds of major clients worldwide across all industries and across all geographies. And I've had the privilege of understanding this space and really being at the forefront of how we change as the world changes and take clients forward and industries forward here. And in terms of my experience, I worked a lot in technology. I have a PhD in computer science from the University of Michigan in AI. So I've been always in technology, innovation, research, and next generation transformation. And I have seen and been in the whole process of bringing AI, cloud, and IoT together and how they interplay to transform businesses and the world. And I did a lot of industry experience. I also have startup experience, and so I've seen both sides of that picture. And I'm very excited about this time and this play. Having been a decade plus in this space, I see that there's no time like now in terms of the scale of the transformation and the momentum of transformation that is happening, especially in a post-pandemic world. So that's a brief introduction about me and what I get excited about. And I've lived about 25 years in the US, and last several years I've been operating from India. So I really enjoy the global view and the global perspectives of working with people all around the world. I have three daughters, and I really enjoy spending time with them, so that's a quick intro about me.
To hear that, Gopal, and I'm really excited about having this conversation with you. We all know how hybrid cloud business is expanding. Uh, so, first question, Gopal, is to just set the context for our viewers, right? Uh, I wanted you to touch upon what exactly is hybrid cloud and what is cloud continuum, right? How are they related? Are they just synonyms, or is cloud continuum a much more advanced state of hybrid cloud? Can we start with that, please?
Yeah, so this hybrid cloud has been a term that's been around for quite some time, because as this whole cloud paradigm came in, as uh, computing became available as a service, and saying, okay, more and more people started seeing, even over the last decade, how you could have public clouds where instead of having all your infrastructure on premise and applications on premise, you could move them to a public cloud and receive that as a service from the public cloud with various advantages there. But at the same time, this cloud journey started for a lot of people with bringing the cloud principles and virtualization and automation and this as a service model within their premise itself, within their private environment. So these private clouds. So you needed both of these to interplay, private and public clouds to interplay. That was the reality, because nobody was 100% here or there. They needed the hybrid model and that model to work properly together. So that was the origination of the hybrid cloud term. So is it private or public or hybrid? And hybrid was the reality. Now this reality itself is evolving. And what is the reality now is not just private versus public, because that line itself is becoming blurred, because you can take your private environments and have a secure environment in a public cloud that is private to you. A public cloud can come into your premise and be act like a public cloud while being hosted in your premise. So that other direction is also happening. So all the cloud native principles and accessing it like public cloud, but it's hosted somewhere near you. And that is evolving into more and more with the advent of 5G and IoT and edge computing. It is, you need computing and services to happen at the edge in various locations. So it's more and more distributed. It goes from what happens in your premise, from your traditional environments to private clouds to multiple public clouds to 5G and the edge. And all of these working together in a seamless fashion and driving your business forward.
The first step could be hybrid, and then when you start using more advanced features of cloud and when it helps you to innovate, that is where probably you could say it is falling into the cloud continuum more, to put it
Yeah,
very simply.
yes and no, Diksha. My experience now is it is better. It's rate at which the transformation is happening now. And
Right.
if a company wants to really lead and be a leader in the industry, they need to transform to this cloud continuum model now. They should
Okay.
not be thinking of it as, okay, I'll take a first step and later maybe I'll get to a cloud continuum. That is too slow. That is
Okay.
not
Right.
ignoring the reality of today. The
Okay.
reality is a cloud continuum, and it's upfront. Wherever you are in your journey, you start from there and say, how fast do I get into this cloud
Right.
continuum model?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to understand both from a business perspective and technology perspective, what are the factors that are driving this demand for the cloud continuum, as you say? Uh, can you give us your insights based on your experience across verticals? And if you can bring in some vertical trends, that would be great.
Yeah. So overall, I mean, we are seeing a huge shift, right? The world has really gone digital. The world is really transforming to this digital model, and every industry is doing that. Like you said, it's not one vertical; it is across, and especially the pandemic uh, opened everybody's eyes, and every business had to transform at a rate and pace that we have all been seeing. And what this means is what we thought would take a decade to get there to the digital model when pre-pandemic. Now we are seeing it as something that will happen within 3 years. So it is considerably sped up, that whole transformation. But why do companies need to transform? That's your really the question. What are the drivers? And it is one is clearly financial, and in terms of the financial efficiency and gains that you get, you can significantly reduce your OPEX 30 to 40%. You can have this whole on-demand model for your infrastructure, and the other aspect is really the total cost of ownership really goes down when you go into this. So that's the business and financial driver is really the biggest driver. Now, along with that is very closely associated with that is speed and agility. So how do you really get to market faster? How do you reduce it by 50% at least in terms of your time to market? How can you accelerate the rate at which you experiment by several times, by even 20x speed in terms of how you bring in new innovations and take them to market and try them out and while keeping it relevant to your business. Then the other side of it is just the way the world is transforming, the business transforming, everything going digital very clearly. Then you need to, the other aspect I see very closely tied with this whole transformation is sustainability. This is something was nice to have before, but for this decade, it is a must, and it is a big driver of business. So how do you make sure your entire infrastructure to applications to business and suppliers, everything is in a model of sustainable development, and the sustainable development goals itself become important. So all these are dimensions that drive this transformation to this new model. And why is it hybrid? Because it's the nature of business. You have a lot of existing business, you have a lot of existing infrastructure. You are trying to change that to, okay, first of all, how can I get more and more value by moving a lot of my applications into a cloud native model? And but that cannot be done overnight. So what has to run where? So you need to have that, and you have to go into these new opportunities that are being opened by the edge. And again, if everything going digital, everybody being online, and all business being conducted remotely, it becomes much more important, whether it is immersive healthcare, because you need information from the edge. If you really think of banking anywhere, and again, you need information from the edge. Industry 4.0, how does manufacturing happening, and how do you have the intelligent cars and the next generation transportation? Again, a lot of information from the edge that needs to be integrated. So you really need to deal with this continuum. What do I already have? What can I run in the cloud? And how do I get the edge into the play? And how do I innovate with this? So that's really what is driving this
Oh, that is a
transformation.
that's a very important and relevant point you made, Gopal, in the sense that all the trends that we are seeing, you have the telecom angle, the cloud angle, and the edge angle, the holy trinity in a way, which is kind of embedding into each other and forming a continuum, right? So now I can't see cloud without edge and edge without cloud.
Exactly.
Even from a strategy perspective, right? Earlier there was slight difference, but I think that is now slowly going out of the window. And if you have cloud, then you must look at edge. And if you are thinking about edge, you have to look at cloud. That's what is my observation. But thank you. I think I'll explore that topic a little more at a different stage. Uh,
Sure,
but
sure.
I, my next question is related to how companies and service providers are making a hybrid cloud more accessible to people, right? And easier to use. And from that angle, we are seeing a lot of automation that is happening, right? To simplify the complexities. I wanted to, your perspective on what is the trends in automation that you observed as far as hybrid cloud is concerned.
Yeah, so cloud, hybrid cloud, and this term we have been using of cloud continuum is all automation driven, and it is automation is very it is built into the very fiber of everything. So it is the way to do business. It is and all those benefits that we talked about, whether it is financial efficiency or speed and agility, and the kind of innovation and transformation you need to have. It has automation as the very core, at its very core. It spreads across everything, even things that you would probably not think of at the first glance as the as places where you would think of automation. But so some examples, some would be things you would think about, some probably you would see as something very new. One is infrastructure itself, right? What used to be thought of as here is something that it is hardware has all become software. Everything is available as a service, is infrastructure as code. So the one thing the cloud model does, whether it is on private or public or deploying on the edge, how to deploy automatically, how to configure automatically, how to set up this whole environment automatically. So it's all code driven. So that's a huge area of automation, the infrastructure as code. Now, the other side of it is what was considered a sysadmin kind of work has become what is now called site reliability engineering. And the fundamental principle there of SRE is that anything that can be automated should be. And you approach infrastructure management and system administration as like a developer. And so you manage, instead of 10 systems, you can manage 1,000 and do it all through code and automation. So that's the other thing. And from the other side of the picture, for developers, it is all about, there is no, the line between development and operations is disappearing. So it's not as if I develop code and I throw the application over the fence to somebody to manage it and deploy it and all that. It is one continuum again there from development to operations. It's a DevOps, DevSecOps, DevXOps kind of model. So automation comes in all these areas. And if I take it again, instead of looking at these individual functions, if I look at it from what happens during the journey of a business transformation and business going into cloud and operating in the cloud, every aspect of it is being automated. How do I see what is my current state of affairs? What what is my current state of affairs? From what is the infrastructure? What are my applications? What are my configurations? This discovering my current state is itself is automated. Then it has to be tied to business financials, right? This increasingly we're talking about BizOps and FinOps. So you have to say, here is my business, here is my current infrastructure and application landscape. I discover it automatically. I'm able to tie it automatically to my financial systems. So I have a view of my business, where it is now, and what will I change? What will change if I move to a new model? And you can simulate that, you can predict, and you bring in AI into that prediction itself. So that's another place. Discovery and planning is being automated. Then what is the architecture you want to apply to this transformation? That architectural modeling is being automated. So you can say, here is my current architecture. Here are best practices for the kind of state I need to be in. And here is the architectural transformation that needs to take place. So even that is automated. And then you're saying migration. So I need to migrate to this model. So all the way from what kind of migration do I need to perform? Do I just relocate my application, or do I rehost it? Do I re-architecture it? And all these different, what we call the 7 R's of migration, all those are being automated, along with what approach is applicable to what, which is also being automated. And many times it is not just taking the application and moving it, but there are many processes around it, saying, okay, how do I, like I said, how do I assess my current environment? How do I discover it? What are the pre-checks that I need to do? How do I configure my new environment? How do I make sure all the security checks have been done? And how do I then move into actually trigger that migration itself? And then what are the post checks that I need to do? How do I ensure high availability and disaster recovery? All these steps, all these process around the migration itself is being automated. So it's really across the board how this needs to come in, and that is what makes it both exciting and challenging and inspiring for a lot of people to move into the cloud model, because it inspires a lot of people to up their skills and automation and bring that transformation. They can see visibly the benefits that come from that approach.
So, Gopal, there's one more very relevant question when it comes to cloud, right? That is in terms of forming strategic partnerships as a way forward. In one of our research that we did recently and that was published in February of this year, Future of Technology Services, we had identified that around 40% of the global cloud services opportunity is going to be influenced by these kind of partnerships. So I just wanted your perspective again on how are these strategic partnerships evolving and how crucial are they, especially when you talk about the entire ecosystem player and also from a customer perspective.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Diksha, in terms of partnerships and the ecosystem. There's it is very clear, and as Accenture, this is very fundamental and in fact a differentiator for us in terms of that very strong partnerships and ecosystem approach we take to the cloud transformation, because we see that this is really the need, and I really have experienced it again and again firsthand, because no one player is strong enough to drive the transformation that needs to happen. So there are several aspects of this, right? One is, of course, the hyperscalers, the in terms the cloud service providers, and that is at the heart of driving this revolution. And you see the rate of innovation, the rate of investment that is happening there, the scale of infrastructure. It is just amazing. So it is very important that a business and industry needs to have a very strong partnership with the hyperscaler, right? And with one or more, and more, we are seeing the trend that almost every business is multi-cloud. So and that is very important part of this whole cloud continuum definition we look at, right? Because more and more it's not one public cloud even, but multiple public clouds. So you need those partnerships, and that means and also along with that you have a number of technology companies that are playing on this on these hyperscalers, whether it is automation, whether it is virtual machines and management, whether it is migration, whether it's how to do modernization, all these, it's a hotbed of innovation. So there are new companies coming up all the time, which provide that extra technology that helps you play in this space. So you need those. So and you need the integrators that are able to bring this together, and you need managed services around this. So it's really that whole, and all of this is not very useful if it doesn't come with the industry knowledge and with the knowledge of what your business does, which comes from you, and also that deep and knowing what others in the industry are doing, what are the best practices in the industry, and bringing the best practices to you. So it is this, without this ecosystem, we really can't succeed, and no business can succeed. So, and our own approach has been, yes, at a very foundation, very fundamental to our approach is these very strong partnerships. We view it as joint businesses with many partners, so that we are bringing the solution together for the client. So hopefully that answers your question at the and if you have any more questions on that, I'll be happy to add more on that.
In fact, we're actually doing a detailed study on strategic partnerships with the hyperscalers, right? So that report is probably going to come out next month. We're planning to do a whole bunch. So I'll let you know once that happens. Uh, One of the key stakeholders, right? One is, of course, from a partnership perspective, ecosystem players and all of that. But an equally important stakeholder in helping hybrid cloud happen is your talent pool, your workforce, right? And skill development is extremely important, extremely urgent given the demand that we are seeing. In fact, in the cloud skills report that we published in August, we had estimated that by 2025 we need 2.2 million cloud skills overall at an India level, right, for to meet the demand. And currently we are at close to 110,000. So how do we bridge that gap? That is what we had explored. So I wanted to understand what Accenture is doing in one, building the relevant skills, both in terms of the technical certifications also, and in terms of other business domain related skill that would be required, right? Because it's just, I don't think it is only about getting skilled in a particular um, public platform or a particular set of technologies. It's much more than that. So can you give us a what you guys are doing there?
Yeah, first of all, it is such a it is so important. It is really um, cloud transformation. Very simply put, a business trying to transform to cloud simply cannot succeed if its talent doesn't transform. Otherwise, we have seen this time and again. So the biggest barriers to success in cloud transformation, because many people, many companies try, but not all succeed. The number one factor seems to be skills and talent. And there are, we found four major factors. The number one is skills and talent. Then there is the legacy application sprawl. There is security, and basically the alignment between business and IT. So these are the big factors we see. So what that means to us, Diksha, is now when we approach cloud transformation, we view it as a holistic transformation. You have to view it that way to make it succeed. So it is about business, it is about technology, and it's about talent. So it is all three dimensions have to be dealt with holistically together in one unified framework if a company has to succeed. So talent is at the very core. So we see it in from two ways, right? How we do the talent transformation within our company, and how do we approach the talent transformation as a foundational element of how a transformation is done for a customer or a client business. So from both sides, if I talk about us, the again, our whole approach was, this is all about getting our talent, our people really skilled in cloud. And since I'm talking about hybrid and this cloud continuum, the way we are seeing it is, for somebody to be a real hybrid cloud skilled person, they need to be a deep expert in at least one public cloud technology. They need to have one very strong private cloud technology background and depth. And they need to have a deep engineering skill, that is whether it is in automation, whether it is in DevOps or a particular type of automation. So there are several areas we have outlined as deep engineering skills, where it could range from cloud native development to automated systems administration, to automatic deployment, to and so on. So we see these three factors coming in. So you need to have a public cloud expertise, you need to have a private cloud expertise, and a deep engineering, cross-cutting engineering expertise. Only if you have these three, then you are an effective hybrid engineer or skilled professional. And again, with this, you can grow a lot from there. Now, I mentioned the industry skills, right? So that's the other side of it that needs to come in. But yeah, so every job role we are taking, from somebody who's a consultant to somebody who's a solution architect, somebody who's an industry expert to somebody who's a systems administration to a developer, every one of these, we have a roadmap saying, okay, you're here. This is, and where do you need to get to? What is your roadmap in terms of being a truly highly skilled hybrid cloud professional? So that's the path we have set. And for us itself, it's been a huge transformation and a continuous journey. So one of the first things we did as we launched what we call Cloud First, enabling businesses to transform into a cloud first model. So that's the approach we are taking, Diksha. We are saying our talent is on a continuous journey. It is a journey into the cloud continuum, and it is industry knowledge enabled. And each one, wherever they are in their skill spectrum, has a way forward. So that's very important. And when we go to a company and we want to transform them, it's a holistic approach where we go from biz ops slash FinOps to architecture, migration, modernization, and talent planning, all in one framework. So it's about where is the talent. If you want to get to this point in terms of your transformation, here is the talent you need, and where is your talent today, and what is the training and programs and experiences that you need to incorporate. So you need to try that, and you need to see that that is tied back into your BizOps. Into you're seeing the financial results of that, you're seeing the benefits of that, and you're continuously fine-tuning this model. So that visibility and integrated approach is what we are seeing as crucial.
So I want to stay on this point a little longer, Gopal, with your permission, and I want to explore two aspects. One is, of course, building the talent and the expertise of the core team that creates your cloud platform or works on the cloud platform. But there are also other teams who are not integral to this, but integral to the company and to the solution as a whole. For example, sales and marketing. What level of training do they need? And this is not only from your perspective, but they, like we said, they're also integral. So they also need to have an understanding of what is cloud, what are you guys doing in cloud, so that they're able to convey the right uh, uh, message to the customers. So one is, what are you doing there, if at all? And second is, I want to also understand you. Vertical cloud is a big thing now, right? And that is also emerging as one of the key differentiators. So building a domain expertise also is likely to play a fairly big role in the near future. Anything around those that you guys are doing? What are your focus areas there?
Yeah, so very good question. Again, this is essentially there were two parts to your question. One is how are we enabling the functions that may not be core technology, but they need to be skilled and knowledgeable about cloud, that like sales and marketing. That's one side of the question, and the second is how do we bring the industry knowledge, industry transformation, industry verticals, and into this approach, and how do we do that? So, to us, see, first of all, we see it very much as a business transformation. This is about um, it's fundamentally, it is not just technology. It is the whole business transforming it. So it is very much related to the company's financial picture, its growth ambitions, leading in the industry. So that's the real driver. So we take everything from there. So that's the starting point for us, which means um, it is not a technology conversation alone and at all. It is actually so much more a business consultant, sales and marketing, a real transformation development conversation, which has to happen at every level. So the way we are approaching that is first of all ensuring this multidimensional conversation that is taking place. It is across business, technology, and people. All three need to transform, otherwise it's not, and it has to be approached holistically. And the other thing we have done is we have developed an integrated platform that cuts across businesses and is really client and market facing. We call it MyNav. So this is our approach where we say all the way it starts with business planning and says what is your business situation, how do you assess your business situation, what is your, very quickly, what can we say are the results from this transformation, how do you track it, what are industry best practices in this space, and how do you, and being able to throw, and this is going back to your question about automation, every function being automated. This is our cloud approach to sales and marketing itself, because sales and marketing needs to be very informed and data driven and cloud driven in terms of how they approach the value proposition itself to a customer. So that's how we are enabling our sales and marketing. So they need to be up to speed with these tools that make them much more effective and data driven and having that right business conversation. So it starts from there. And then we say, okay, here is the, how do you track that progress? So, and then it goes on, right? So how do you design it? How do you then make sure your operations are happening in a consistent way? and we have a whole thing there. We'll come back to it perhaps. We call it the cloud control plane, because this is the operating model of how you work in the cloud continuum. So that's the other thing. And then it goes into this holistic approach means that it's not only about migration to cloud, it is really about accelerating the transformation of your business model to cloud, because you need to have your applications and your whole business re-architected for the cloud.
Yeah.
And then you need to grow and innovate your business. So we call it these three steps. You migrate, you accelerate, and then you grow and innovate. And this, in every step of it, the industry is involved, because you have to make it, what is it that is relevant to you? If the migration approach for a banking or insurance is very different from healthcare,
Yeah.
or the regulations are different, the current landscape is different. So each one is industry driven. Again, that re-architecting your business is industry driven, and growth and innovation is very clearly. So we have what built into our mind app, what we call an industry advisor, right? So it's saying for your specific industry, what are the best practices? What are the transformation goals? And what is the vision that we see, and what the customer sees, and how do we bring them together? So this is and all of this, again, going back to your previous point, has a talent advisor built into it, because it is industry talent and cloud talent coming across all functions of their business too, and that's how we are approaching it.
Basically, net what you're saying is that you're not leaving anybody out of this training program. You cannot afford to leave.
You
Every
cannot.
single person, every
Yeah.
adjacent team needs to understand, at least to a large extent, and you're tailoring your training programs based on their job profile and what they would need, and at the same time you're also helping them leverage cloud to improve their own performance and productivity.
And productivity.
Would that be? Yeah.
That's a very good summary. It touches everyone. And this is the same message we are taking to our customers as well, to our clients who are transforming, saying this is the approach you need to have. You need to, and we come with having gone through it ourselves, because we are constantly transforming. We got so many people enabled, and we have record number of industry certifications and training. So we say this is the kind of approach you need to bring to your business too, and we help with that.
So, Gopal, coming to the last section, right? We've till now talked about Accenture's approach and the industry approach, what service providers can do. But an equally important stakeholder is the customer, right? And for this section, you will be the spokesperson for all your customers in a way. And I want to focus in this section on what is the best practices that customers need to follow when they're thinking of implementing hybrid cloud, or they're building a hybrid cloud strategy, right?
Right, right.
There you already touched upon the importance of security, right? And that to me is at the very heart of the entire cloud business, right? And the second important point is in terms of FinOps, which you also touched upon. But now I want your views on these two topics from a customer angle, because they also need to understand what is the security that they have responsible for. So both security of the hybrid cloud environment and the security on the hybrid cloud environment. And of course, because they are the consumers of cloud, they need to understand the costing. So what role or what understanding should they have? What are the best practices that they should keep in mind when they're looking at security and FinOps?
Yeah. So from the security is very fundamental, as you say, and it covers every aspect. Now it starts with security and privacy go together, and data regulation and the regulatory constraints go very much together. So it's about which workload needs to stay where. How do you ensure data security? That is one aspect of it. That's a huge driver of this hybrid. And besides, okay, what is the performance angle? Closeness to the customer angle? There is this whole notion of, okay, I want this to be 100% secure, I have critical data, and I have geographical constraints. So those have to be met, and that's a fundamental to the framework, and as well as the automated approach and the and complete trail of documentation and prove just the provability of security, right? So that whole area is very critical. But it also spans how do you have a common policy that spans your continuum, because you have a company policy, you have standards, you need to apply them independent of and across the different providers you're working with. So you have your the same there's a lot of the industries have pretty stringent standards and practices and policies that have been developed in their on-premise context. Now that has to be applicable on the public clouds as well, and applied consistently, whether it is things like virus scans to patch management, to ensuring that you are compliant with all data regulations. All of these the policies have to be applied across, which is why this cloud control plane is so important from every aspect, but including security, because you want to say, independent of which environment I am operating on, I want to have a single pane of glass or a single view of how my entire application landscape, how my entire infrastructure landscape is doing from a security perspective. So I should be able to get there and be able to point out risk factors and do predict and prevent incidents before they happen through this common way of dealing this across the entire spectrum. So that's a very foundational element for us from a security perspective. So hopefully that addresses it. Did you want to ask anything more about security?
Security, but you also touched upon FinOps, right?
Yeah.
That single planar. So that is, I think that actually.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
FinOps, just to add one word to that is, again, it goes back to this cloud control plane and a cloud operating model for a continuum. So this is, and that holistic approach I talked about. So it is, as much as security is important, you also need to have that business view, and you need to have the talent view. All of these three need to come together into your dashboard for your business. So saying, here is how every transformation I am taking, every step I am taking on the journey is translating into business results. So that integration into your financial systems is essential. So that's maybe I'll leave it at that. That is the way we are seeing, that is the way to success and of meaningful impact with this cloud transformation.
And continuing on this topic of how hybrid cloud can be seamless for the customer, right? We've recently seen quite a few incidences of cloud outages, right? And it does translate into fairly bad customer experience, both at the retail side and also at the business side, right? Is there any way a company, whether it is a customer or a service provider, what can they do under those circumstances when you're faced with that kind of a situation? What is the best approach to take to get back on your feet at the fastest?
Yeah, so this is a very good question. It has multiple dimensions to it. So maybe I'll answer it in three ways. One is because we are talking about hybrid, this is one of the big drivers as well of this approach to take a hybrid multi-cloud approach for businesses, because businesses want to make sure that there is a very strong framework of high availability and disaster recovery, and that is not dependent on only one provider, but even if it's one provider, they need to have a lot of each provider is bringing in a lot of that. And but this is one of the fundamental drivers for I want it to be across multiple providers. I want a framework, and this is the new world, right? With containerization, with the latest technology, you can build once and deploy anywhere. So that is one of the things that is saying, okay, if I develop my applications, I can more easily deploy it in one public cloud versus the other. I can easily move from one to the other, and I have the flexibility, and I can bring it to on premise. I can elastically scale out to the right provider. So depending on performance and again, this high availability disaster recovery is are big drivers there. So that's one side of it. That's one of the biggest reasons why we are taking a hybrid multi-cloud approach. Many businesses are. The other is this continuous evolution in how each provider themselves and how technology is evolving to ensure this. So each provider is making sure that they have this um, uh, fundamental approach. Like, for example, the data plane and the infrastructure control plane need to be separate, and they were tied together. But now the data plane and that control plane are by design separate, so that even if you have an outage on the infrastructure side, your data is safe and it has already been protected because there's a different way of dealing with it. And so there are fundamental technology choices like that. But the third is yeah, there's this prediction and prevention. So yeah, and but again, there is always a limit to it because it's like your car has broken down, but you are supposed to get a warning, but you didn't. Because you have all the smart sensors, IoT built into your car, it's supposed to tell you before it is happening. But what if you see the smoke coming out of the car? Then you have to stop and go do it manually and bring things back up. And so there are situations like that do come up even in a highly automated environment where then it becomes then there are only two things there, right? Of course, you need to go and fix what has happened, but you could have prevented it if you had a multi cloud approach, so that you had a more robust framework for disaster recovery. And the other
Right.
things is you need the AI built in. That's why we call it AI operations, because you have more and more prediction and prevention capability. And the third is you just need to continuously learn from these things when that happens, so that you don't that doesn't happen again. But yeah, so it's there's multiple levels. There's no silver bullet, but increasing.
Yeah.
You have the numbers 99.99
Yeah.
availability. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, it's a very complex topic. I think it's not so easy also. Multiple dimensions to it, like you said. But I have one more and final question. Throughout our conversation, you have touched upon a lot of aspects of hybrid cloud, from automation to skills to FinOps to security, all of that. But one fundamental differentiator that cloud is supposed to deliver, both to the technology side and also every other vertical, is a platform for innovation, right? So do you have any examples where, especially from a last 2 years, right, COVID perspective, we've heard stories of companies pivoting their businesses, changing their business models almost overnight. Do you have any interesting stories of how uh, customers are leveraging hybrid cloud to innovate and differentiate their businesses?
Yeah, so it's a lot of examples there. So one is clearly the pandemic itself was an eye opener, right? In terms of companies, uh, clearly the pharmaceutical companies needed to adopt to this model very fast. In the life science and healthcare was an industry which we clearly saw that they, without the cloud, they could not get the either the ability to innovate, first of all, get all the people that needed in the ecosystem to operate remotely, operate. We saw it across industries, but even much more so here. Getting the data from the field at the scale they needed to, and having the high performance computing they needed to scale out in the way they wanted, and integrate with their fundamental high performance computing systems in on-premise. All this working together was simply not possible, and we saw the results of that in terms of the vaccine development and the deployment of vaccination and the reach for the people. All this was simply driven by a hybrid cloud paradigm. We wouldn't be in this situation today where the world is operating to a large extent again without this. So it was very eye-opening from that perspective. But it's also this also became a trigger for businesses to realize the speed at which it is possible to do the digital transformation and what is the benefits. And we're seeing those companies that can do it fast have huge opportunities. I mean, it goes from very simple things like, I mean, one of the companies we were working with is a major, just to turn the lens completely to a different side, is a cosmetics company, a global cosmetics company, and saying, okay, they needed to really grow in the Asia Pacific market while meeting the specific regulatory constraints of the Asia Pacific market and reach this market. Now, the speed at which that could happen because of a cloud model, which had the ability to switch to a new cloud, because they needed not the cloud provider they were working with, but to a different cloud provider that would enable them, or two different cloud providers that would give them the ability, reach, and the regulatory compliance they needed in Asia Pacific, being able to do that within 3 months and seeing a 25% sales increase in by getting to a in this market. So that kind of opening new sales channels, seeing that addressing a new market, new regulatory constraints, and they could launch 18 new brands within this period. So that kind of business agility was made possible. So there are many examples like this, right? So there's a huge hospitality services company, one of the leading providers in the world. Again, they needed to transform this entire model because they were, again, whether it was the business innovation and total cost of ownership, they really needed to bring that down. And for that as well, there was very critical that, and they could reduce their total cost of ownership by 40% by getting into this hybrid model, and at the same time they had the speed to reach new markets. So those are quick examples, but we are seeing examples like this in across industries, where banking, insurance is another major area where we are seeing that as this transformation is happening, modernization of every application so that they can do that. And insurance business is going more and more to the edge. So because it's from the edge data, they can have the continuous data to optimize and also make it very much of a win-win, because the driver who is not really driving that much or taking any risk should not be charged the same insurance as that person who is taking a lot more risk in the way they are operating. So that kind of optimization, both for the customer and for their business, again, huge reduction, 40 to 50% reduction in total cost of ownership, getting to new business models, and being able to grow their business. We are seeing these kind of digital and cloud continuum advantages that these businesses are getting. And now the realization is this can be done at a much faster pace than was imagined before.
Great, Gopal, because that's very interesting. In fact, also very recently, I think just 10 days or so ago, released a compendium of cloud case studies, right, which touches upon various aspects that you mentioned. So both from an India and global perspective, what is the ROI innovation that they've seen? And we're seeing similar numbers, right? So there's a lot of opportunity for customers to explore the potential of not just hybrid cloud, but other cloud platforms also. And in that process, reimagine their own businesses. So for this talk, Gopal, I think that is all the questions that I have. Thank you very, very much for your time. It has been really very insightful, very, very interesting conversation. So I do want to thank you. And uh, before we close, I want to inform our viewers, right, about two reports on cloud computing that we published recently. Both reports I mentioned in my conversation with Gopal. One is on the cloud skills powering India's digital DNA. This explores the existing landscape of cloud skills in India and also gives a roadmap of how India can close the demand supply gap. And the second one is the Cloud Cornerstone Success in Action, which is a compendium of case studies focused on everything as a service and software as a service. And this is the first of two volumes and has case studies on how enterprises in India and across the world have implemented cloud. And it highlights the ROI that they have experienced in terms of cost savings, new revenue streams, improved customer experience, and many more. The second volume will be due in the next 10 days. All of these reports and many other reports are available on our community.nasscom.in page. Please feel free to explore. And Gopal, I want to once again thank you for taking the time out for this conversation. I also want to wish you and the entire Accenture team a very happy new year, in case we don't meet. And to the viewers also, wish you all a very safe, healthy, and a happier 2022. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Diksha. It's been a real pleasure, and I join you in wishing everybody a happy new year, and we're looking forward to a year of great transformation and progress on our planet towards being a healthier and more prosperous planet in 2022.
And more sustainable.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Gopal.
Thank you.